Autobiography of a Yogi is not a memoir. It is a technical manual for overriding physical law, using human consciousness as the instrument. Right now, you're sensing it. That feeling, that reality is thinner than you were taught, that the rules have exceptions nobody talks about. This book documents those exceptions in precise, repeatable detail. And today you're being handed the mechanism they buried. The one that explains everything. Yogananda didn't write a religious autobiography. He documented a technology. Every levitation, every healing, every appearance in two places at once. These aren't miracles in the theological sense. They are outputs. Reproducible outputs from a specific sequence of consciousness operations that human beings can learn, practice, and master. And here's what makes this so important. This isn't isolated to one tradition, one teacher, one century. There is a pattern running underneath every civilization's sacred core, from the Egyptian mystery schools to the Vedic sages to the Sufi mystics to the Christian contemplatives. Once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. The vocabulary changes. The geography changes. The underlying mechanism is identical. That mechanism has a name. It has steps. And it was encoded most precisely in a text written roughly 2,000 years ago, a text that functions as the original operator's manual for human consciousness. We're going to open that manual together. Stay with me through this entire thing. I need you to stay with me, because later in this video, and I mean deep in this video, we are going to decode the exact mechanism behind bilocation. How a human being appears in two physical locations simultaneously, not as metaphor, not as legend, as a documented, mechanistically explainable function of consciousness operating at its sovereign range. That's coming. And the architecture we build in the next few minutes is what makes that revelation land the way it needs to. This reframe, once it takes hold, does not let go. You don't get to unknow this. So if you're ready to see the pattern beneath the miracles, we begin right now. There is a layer beneath the miracles. Not beneath them in the sense of something smaller or simpler, beneath them in the sense of a foundation that makes them structurally inevitable. And that layer has a name. It's called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, written somewhere around the 2nd century BCE. Possibly compiled from an oral tradition far older. The sutras are 196 aphorisms, compact, precise, ruthlessly technical. Most people who encounter them treat them as philosophical poetry. That's the first mistake. These are engineering instructions. Patanjali wasn't describing a spiritual feeling or a metaphysical worldview. He was documenting a sequence of operations that, when executed in the correct order, produce measurable, observable changes in the relationship between consciousness and matter. The sutras don't ask you to believe anything. They ask you to do something. And then they tell you exactly what will happen when you do. So what is the core mechanism? What is the actual protocol that every documented yogi feat traces back to? It's called samyama. And understanding samyama is understanding the master key. Samyama is a 3-stage process. The first stage is dharana, concentration. Not casual focus, but the kind of absolute, unwavering, single-pointed attention that most people have never sustained for more than a few seconds in their lives. Patanjali describes it as binding consciousness to a single object. You are not thinking about the object. You are not visualizing it. You are becoming identical with it in awareness. The second stage is dhyana, meditation. This is the unbroken flow of that concentrated awareness. The gap between observer and observed begins to dissolve. You are no longer a person looking at a thing. You are the looking itself. The third stage is samadhi, absorption, complete. The boundary between the one who perceives and the thing perceived collapses entirely. There is only the object, known from the inside. Now here's the question that matters. What happens when you apply that 3-stage override to something physical? What happens when samyama is directed not at a concept but at a law of nature? Patanjali answers this directly. In the 3rd chapter of the Sutras, the Vibhuti Pada, he lists the specific objects of samyama and the corresponding siddhis, the powers, that result. Direct knowledge of the past and future, comprehension of all languages, knowledge of previous lives, invisibility, levitation, strength beyond the physical body. These are not presented as gifts from a deity. They are presented as outputs, functions. The natural consequence of applying a specific operation to a specific input. This is the decode move that changes everything. The siddhis aren't supernatural. They are what happens when consciousness stops operating at its default, filtered, socially conditioned range and begins functioning at kaivalya, The sovereign state Patanjali names as the destination of the entire system. Kaivalya means aloneness, but not loneliness. It means sovereign awareness, unbound from the compulsive identification with matter, with the body, with the social self. In that state, the normal constraints that govern the relationship between mind and physical reality no longer apply in the same way. Because those constraints were never absolute. They were agreements, defaults, the operating parameters of consciousness, running at a fraction of its actual range. Yogananda's teacher, Sri Yukteswar, demonstrated this. His teacher, Lahiri Mahasaya, demonstrated this. The lineage Yogananda documents isn't a chain of special chosen individuals. It's a chain of practitioners who ran the same protocol and got the same results. Manly P. Hall, who spent decades cataloging the esoteric traditions of the ancient world, noted that across every mystery school, Egyptian, Greek, Persian, Vedic, the inner curriculum always converged on the same thing. The mastery of attention, the dissolution of the observer-observed boundary, the sovereign operation of awareness unmediated by the conditioned self. This is not a coincidence. This is the pattern. And here is a civilizational example that makes this concrete. The construction of Nalanda University in 5th century India, the greatest center of learning the ancient world produced, drawing scholars from China, Persia, Greece, Korea, was built around a curriculum that placed consciousness science at the center, not as a supplement to knowledge, as the foundation of it. The premise was explicit. The quality of your awareness determines the quality of what you can know. Patanjali's system wasn't a side course at Nalanda, it was the prerequisite. Before you studied logic, medicine, astronomy, or philosophy, you studied the instrument through which all of those disciplines would be perceived. You studied your own mind at the operating system level. That's what Autobiography of a Yogi is pointing you back toward. Not a saint's biography, a reminder that you have access to this system, that the protocol exists, that it has been tested across thousands of years and hundreds of practitioners, and the results are documented. Every levitation in that book traces to Samyama, every healing, every transmission of knowledge across distance. One source, one mechanism, one operating system. But here's what they don't tell you. The operating system doesn't run on belief. It doesn't run on devotion. Though devotion can deepen it, it runs on the body. The physical, biological, metabolic body is the hardware this entire system depends on. And what the advanced practitioners understood about the body, what Yogananda documents in ways that modern biology is only now beginning to catch up to, that's the layer we're going into next. Here is the layer that stops most people cold. Not because it is too mystical, because it is too biological. What the Yoga Sutras document, what Yogananda spends page after careful page building a case for, is that the human body is not a fixed machine running on fixed fuel. It is a field-responsive system, and consciousness is the field. Let that sit for a moment. We have been taught that metabolism is automatic, that the heart beats because of electrochemical signals, that cells consume glucose because biology demands it, that the body is, at its core, a very sophisticated engine that you ride around in but do not actually control. That is the story, and it is only half true, because here is what the advanced practitioners documented across thousands of years and dozens of traditions. Certain individuals, yogis, saints, mystics, have demonstrated the ability to suspend metabolic function entirely, not reduce it, suspend it, to stop breathing for hours, to go without food for decades, to lower core body temperature to levels that should produce organ failure and instead produce stillness. Documented stillness, witnessed stillness. Paramahansa Yogananda is specific about this. He does not speak in metaphor. He names individuals. He describes conditions. He describes Giribala, a woman in Bengal who ate no food and drank no water for over 50 years, verified by investigators who monitored her for extended periods. 50 years. The body, according to everything we were taught, should have collapsed within days. It did not. Because the body was not running on food, it was running on something else. What was it running on? The yogic tradition has a precise answer. Prana, not as a poetic concept, as a measurable organizing principle, the intelligence that structures biological function before chemistry executes it. Modern bioenergetics is arriving at a parallel answer through a completely different door. Researchers like Mei Wan Ho, who spent decades studying the liquid crystalline nature of living tissue, demonstrated that cells communicate through coherent light fields. That biological order precedes and directs chemical reaction, not the other way around. The body is not a chemistry set, it is a light coherent system, directed by an organizing field. And that field responds to awareness. Now here is where it gets wider. Because this is not only a Hindu or yogic phenomenon. Therese Neumann was a Catholic stigmatic in 20th century Bavaria. She reportedly consumed nothing but the Eucharist, a single communion wafer daily, for years. She was observed by physicians, by clergy, by skeptics. Her body showed no signs of starvation. Her wounds bled and healed in documented cycles. The Catholic Church called it miraculous. The yogic tradition would have called it a mastery of prana. Different symbol systems, identical mechanism. This is the decode move that changes everything. The phenomenon does not belong to any one religion. It does not require belief in any particular theology. It is a human capacity that multiple traditions independently discovered and independently documented. The label changes, the underlying physics does not. And then there is the matter of what happens after death. Yogananda died in March of 1952. His body was prepared for burial and placed in an open casket at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles. 20 days passed. The mortuary director, Harry Rowe, submitted a notarized letter, a formal, legal document, stating that no physical signs of decay appeared on Yogananda's body for 20 days after death. No odor, no mold, no discoloration, nothing. The letter is on record. It is not a religious claim. It is a notarized statement from a mortuary professional with no spiritual agenda. The incorruptible body, it appears, across traditions. Saint Francis Xavier, Saint Bernadette of Lourdes. Dozens of Catholic saints whose preserved remains still exist in churches across Europe. The yogic tradition explains this as the residual coherence of a master's field, consciousness so fully integrated into the body's organizing structure that the field persists even after the biological processes cease. Matter, in other words, obeys awareness, not as a metaphor, as a documented, cross-traditional, biologically observable fact. You have been told that your body runs you, that you are subject to its hungers, its diseases, its inevitable decay. That sovereignty over the physical is either impossible or reserved for saints and holy people who are fundamentally different from you. That is the limitation that gets installed early and runs quietly in the background of every health decision, every fear of illness, every resignation in the face of a diagnosis. But the data says something different. The data says the body is listening, always. The data says consciousness directs the field that directs the biology. And the data says this capacity is not a miracle granted to a few. It is a technology that can be developed. The disciplines in the Yoga Sutras, the specific practices Patanjali encodes, are not rituals for achieving enlightenment in some distant lifetime. They are instructions for learning to speak the language your body is already waiting to hear. Matter obeys awareness. That much is now clear. But here is what the tradition goes further to claim. And this is the piece that most people never reach, because it sounds impossible until you see the evidence. Awareness is not located in the body at all. This is the layer where physics and mysticism stop arguing and start finishing each other's sentences. We have established that consciousness directs biological function, that the body is a field-responsive system, that matter obeys awareness. Now we go one level deeper. Because if awareness directs the body, if consciousness is the organizing field and not the product of brain chemistry, then awareness is not confined to the body. It is not produced inside the skull. It does not live at a specific address, and if it has no fixed address, then location itself becomes a variable. This is what bilocation means, not a magic trick, not a fever dream of credulous medieval monks. It is the logical extension of what we have already established. If consciousness projects location rather than being contained by it, then a sufficiently developed awareness could, in principle, project presence to more than one location simultaneously. The documented record is substantial. Padre Pio, the Italian Capuchin friar, was witnessed by multiple credible observers in two separate geographic locations at the same time. Soldiers in World War I reported his appearance in foxholes on the front lines while he was simultaneously verified in his monastery in San Giovanni Rotondo. These accounts were investigated by the Vatican, an institution not known for accepting miraculous claims casually. The documentation exists. Yogananda documents his own guru, Sri Yukteswar, appearing to him physically, in full, tangible, embodied form, after Sri Yukteswar's death, not as a vision, not as a dream impression, as a physical presence that spoke, that was felt, that communicated specific information that was later verified. Yogananda was a man of scientific temperament. He does not report this casually. He reports it as data. So what is actually happening? Here is the question the materialist framework cannot answer. If consciousness is a product of the brain, then it dies when the brain dies. It is located where the neurons are. It cannot appear elsewhere. Full stop. But if that model were correct, the documented record would not exist. And it does exist. So the model is incomplete. The holographic model offers a more coherent answer. In a hologram, every part contains the information of the whole. Location is a function of how the information is read, not where it is stored. Consciousness, in this framework, does not reside at a point in space. It projects the experience of a point in space. And a system that projects location can, under certain conditions, project multiple locations. This is not fringe speculation. In 1983, the CIA commissioned a research report, now declassified and publicly available, the Gateway Process document. Its authors, working from the research of Robert Monroe and others, concluded that human consciousness operates outside the constraints of space-time. That awareness is not bound by the body. That out-of-body experience, remote viewing, and non-local perception are not anomalies. They are features of a system that was never local to begin with. The report was classified. Think about that. The implication of non-local consciousness was considered sensitive enough to restrict, because if awareness operates outside space-time, then the entire architecture of control, the architecture that depends on you believing you are a small, bounded, mortal thing confined to one body in one place, begins to dissolve. Here is the decode move. Bilocation is not a supernatural exception. It is a natural capacity that has been suppressed from the curriculum. The saints who demonstrated it were not different species. They were human beings who developed a faculty that every human being possesses in latent form. And here is how you know this is true. You already do it. Every night, in sleep, your awareness leaves the body. In deep, dreamless sleep, you are not located anywhere. There is no subjective address. Consciousness is present but unlocated. In dream, your awareness inhabits environments that have no physical coordinates. You navigate, you interact, you experience, without a body performing any of those functions. You have been doing this your entire life and calling it ordinary. It is not ordinary. It is a daily demonstration that you are not the body. That awareness moves. That presence is a projection, not a prison. The masters simply learn to do consciously what you do every night without knowing it. And that changes everything about what you think you are. But what no institution wants you to reach, what gets quietly omitted from every curriculum that touches this material, is the practical implication. Not just that these capacities exist, but that they are accessible, that the path to them is already inside you, that you are not waiting for permission or initiation from an outside authority. You are the technology, and that is the point where everything lands. You stop being a victim of circumstances the moment you recognize that consciousness is the operating layer beneath all of it. The disciplines are not reserved for monks or masters. Initiation begins with attention. With the next breath you take consciously. Drop your experience in the comments. What you have felt, what you have questioned, what you have remembered while watching this. Your insights add layers to this map that I cannot build alone. This is a collective excavation. If you want to go further, sacred geometry, the neurochemistry of mystical states, the architecture beneath the symbols, that is what this channel is built for. Subscribe and continue the initiation. You were never separate from this knowledge. You were always an expression of it. See you at dawn. If you've had an anomalous experience you can't explain, leave it below. That's not a comment section, it's a record. And if this curriculum speaks to something you already knew, subscribe. The initiation continues.